Diesel depots, the heart of traction maintenance. The place where locomotive fleets are restored and maintained. Housing everything required from inspection pits, refuelling points and site offices. Join the Hornby Magazine team as they embark on building a brand new 00 gauge model railway.
When was it a good idea to build a layout outside in January?
In Key Model World's latest multi-part build series.
I think the most important thing now is to start playing trains.
Playing trains?
Or testing, sorry.
Sorry, testing. Testing.
Building a diesel depot.
So hello and welcome to the next instalment of our new multi-part layout build series of Knapford Diesel Depot.
Yeah, we're here again to move on with the project, and this time we're focusing on the ground cover to make this layout come to life.
I always like the scenery.
So do I think. I actually like ballasting. Well, probably on my own with that one, but actually I do like ballasting. It's also quite like wiring as well. Apparently repetitive tasks are great for me.
Which is good for us because we get a layout out of it.
Well, there is that, yeah. So I have my uses.
So I think we should see how you got on.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's go and get cracking.
Today you join us for hour 19 of this build. Day, what is it, what are we on, 4?
About day 4, yeah.
Day 4 for episode 2. Right, Mike, we've put some buildings on since last time.
Yes.
What's changing?
Right, so we're now at the point where we're going to start really making this become a proper model railway now. So we've got track down, we've got the basics of the buildings, the layout all sorted. We know it all works because we tested it. I've trains running around all the different sidings and different scenarios. But now it really needs to have some scenery. Now, obviously, there's one major factor of scenery in a depot scene, which will be quite evident once we start doing it. And it's probably evident now, actually, but we're missing ballast. We need the ballast down because that is the thing that's going to transform this from a very bare baseboard into something that actually really represents the real railway scene as well.
So ballast-wise, what are your choices? I'm presuming you're going to pick up a bag now with a Hornby Magazine sticker on it.
I am, yes, because I have one right here. So we've got our load of Geoscenics ballast kits, which are available from Hornby Magazine through the Key Publishing shop at shop.keypublishing.com. We've got all we've got ballasts for N and 00 gauge. I'm mainly going to use the N gauge one for this project. I think it's the right kind of size for a depot scene. We've also got kits for coal and for iron ore as well. So if you look at some wagon load kits as well, we've got loads of kits of these in stock, and you can order them today for delivery to your door as well.
Right.
So I'm going to follow a similar routine to what I've done before with ballasting, which is actually to mix 2 different grades together, and then we'll sprinkle that on loose onto the layout. Then we'll tamp it all into place with a brush very carefully. Then we'll sit it into place with SBR adhesive. Then we'll have a nicely set layout where all the track plan really looks part of a real railway system.
I look forward to seeing how that progresses.
Definitely. You're watching, are you?
Yeah. I was going to say, aren't we going to get Mark to come ballast?
That's quite a good idea, actually. You call him. Right, ballasting time. So for a lot of people, I don't think they're particularly keen on doing loose ballasting like this, but actually I really enjoy it. I find it a really therapeutic job to do. It's a time-intensive process. It needs care and attention to make it look right. But essentially what it's about is using loose ballast, sprinkling it onto the railway, setting it all into place really neatly, and then coming back and gluing it in place after that as well. So what I've got here is a tub where I've put together a pile of the Geoscenics Hornby Magazine branded N-gauge ballast, so the smaller grade ballast, which I think is going to look right for a depot scene. And literally what I've got to do is pick it up finger at a time, drop it into the track, and then once it's in place, I'll brush over it with this brush to set it into place between the sleepers. Because that's what we're looking for here. Even though it is a depot, it still needs to have a neat and tidy look to it in terms of the ballasting. So if I just start in this area here, I'll show you what we do. So literally picking it up pinch by pinch, dropping it between the sleepers initially. and then what I do is work down either side as well. And one of the reasons I do it by finger is that I know that then I'm not going to have too much ballast on the layout either to sort out and manoeuvre around. One of the worst scenarios you can get is where you just have loads and loads of ballast everywhere and you've got to keep moving it around with a brush and sweeping it about to get it into the final place. This way it will be a relatively simple task to get it done. And you'll see it probably takes me a couple of minutes just to do this short 6-inch length of track here. So there we go, pretty much ballasted up on that short length. And then what I do, I've got this sort of 1-inch paintbrush. I always work down the centre of the track first. It's just a case of sweeping the ballast carefully along the top of the sleepers so that it sets it in between the sleepers. And what you want to end up with is a scenario where you've got no ballast sat on top of the sleepers and it's all neatly in between them. So then once I've gone down the centre, go down the edges and repeat the same process. Just making sure all those sleeper tops are clean. And down the other side. And then a little finishing flourish, just tidy up the edges there as well, on this bit as well. So you can see how quick it is to set the ballast in place. Now obviously that's no good as it is for long term, that's going to be fixed down and we'll show you how to do that shortly. Now though, I've got quite a bit of that ballasting to do. So whilst it's only taking me a couple of minutes to do that 6-inch length, it's going to take me a few more minutes to do the rest of the layout.
Some friends. Why does such a thing make you uptight and tense? You're high-strung, babe. You're high-strung, babe. And a high-strung woman makes for a high-strung man. I go out at night for a drink or two. It seems somehow that bothers you. You're high-strung, babe. High-strung babe, and a high-strung woman makes for a high-strung man. You act up, say I'm lazy and a bum. You're high-strung, babe. You're high-strung, baby. And a high-strung woman makes for a high-strung man. All right now. High-strung, babe. A high-strung woman makes for a high-strung man.
As you can see, we've just taken one of the baseboards off the layout now. So the reason for that is actually we've got to move this layout again, so it's going back up to our normal workshop space. But what I wanted to do is get the ballast seated in place before I do that. So as we've completed that first board, and the glue is on the end of this board as well for the ballast as well, we drop that other baseboard off, and now I can continue progressing through the application of the glue onto this ballast down here. So what I'm doing in order to do the ballasting process is I'm misting the track with water first. So wetting it with water, and what that does, it helps the glue to flow into the ballast as well. Then I'm using an SBR adhesive, which is it's like a PVA, but I find it soaks into the ballast more easily. And then I'm using a pipette to drop drops of glue between each of the sleepers, trying to be as neat as possible, because then it means I've got to do less cleaning up later. Painstaking process, but this is what's now going to fix all this ballast down. I mean, we've got a railway to work on and add detail to.
So I'll be the first to address the elephant in the room for a third time.
Is it only 3?
We've moved again, haven't we?
We have relocated again, yes. Yeah. So we're back in our traditional workshop space where you normally find the Great Central Rail, which is just over there. And often the narrow gauge layout is in the area where we currently are at the moment. But the diesel depot has now been brought back up to here. And this is where it will now stay, he says, boldly, until
it's finished.
Until it's finished, yeah.
We're not allowed out until it's done.
No one's allowed out. I'm going to close the door in a minute, stop people going out.
So the ballast is dry.
It is. Yeah,
We've tidied it up.
Yep, it's had a good couple of days to dry solidly. Like I say, tidied it up, cleaned all the points out as well. I've got a couple of bits where I got a little bit over ambitious with the ballasting. I've got a little bit too much around a couple of tie bars. That's now sorted. A good tip if you're doing ballasting at home for your layout, you've got a bit more time than sometimes we have to do these things. You just put up a couple of drops of model oil, loco oil, around the point blades. That's just where the tie bars are. Then the glue won't set against the tie bars. So it means that then they'll still move once your ballast is all set as well. Because the oil acts as a barrier to the glue then as well. The only reason I didn't do that this time is that chopping and changing between different workshops meant that I just forgot to bring the oil, and deadlines mean we have to get on with these things sometimes.
Well, that's what you get for working for a living.
Yeah.
So what's on today's agenda?
Right, today's agenda then is all about ground cover. So this fairly plain looking layout with some tatty edges to it needs to come to a point where we have base layer of ground cover across the whole layout now. Today, not quite sure how we're going to do that at this point. There's 2 different main types of ground cover that have go down straight away. One is I need a hard standing around the depot, which I've got some 2mm MDF for, so we can cut that all to size, fit between all the pits, and that will give us a hard standing around the depot inspection pits. Secondly, we need the base layer of ground cover for the grasses and materials that are going to go around the track bed as well. I'm going to use a bit of a mixture of 2 products there. I'm going to use a bit more of the Geoscenics Pothold Road Kit and some grass as well, to kind of give a bit of variation in tone of texture around the edge of the railway. So I think that should look quite good by the time I've done it as well.
And the first time I saw the pothole kit was on Fairly Good Idea.
Yes.
And it actually worked really well.
Yeah, I was really impressed by it, actually. I've had that kit sitting around for a little while. I've used it once before, but a long time ago. And I've had that kit sitting around thinking, there's got to be a way I can use this, got to be an advantage for it. Actually, I think it worked really well in the narrow gauge layout. It kind of gave that impression of a pothole road, which is exactly what you want. It's like you could imagine, like along the front of this layout here, you might have a little grass barrier between the road and the railway, but actually be quite a nice little road running along the front edge of this layout here as well.
No, it'd be good. I'm looking forward to implementing that.
Yes. So yeah, going to be a busy day.
Well, I'm looking forward to it.
Good.
Shall we get on?
Yes, I think we should.
Before the deadline comes along.
Yeah, hard standing first.
Hard standing first.
Yeah.
I'm pounding upside to feeling down. When I took a good look around, there's stuff to be learned.
Creating the hard standing for the depot is very much a bespoke custom project for this. So each piece is going to be cut to shape to fit round the inspection pits. A couple of choices of material you can make. Could either do this with plasticard. So you could buy 2mm plasticard, which will give you the same depth as the side of the inspection pit mouldings. Or you could do like we've done here today, which I'm using 2mm MDF, which is to do the same process. Could still be cut with a craft knife, so quite easy to work with and to create the shapes you need. It comes in a nice long sheet as well. So I've cut one piece already. This has been cut to be exactly 41mm across each end to match the distance between these 2 pits here. And the next job is going to be to cut the next section to go between these 2 pits. So first step of the process is to actually measure those. So making sure we've got these previous ones square. So we're going to be 42mm, 43mm between that end, which means I need the same distance at this end so everything sits square. Yeah, we can do that. So it can be 43mm there as well. So then, now I know what my measurements are. I need my sheet of MDF and a pencil. All simple tools for this job. It's quite simply a case of working my way along, making sure I've got at least 3 marks at 43mm in from the edge. And the reason for the 3 marks is that if you just put 2, there's a chance of you getting 1. If you've got 1 out of line, and if you've got 3, then it means you've got 3 reference points that when you draw the line along the lot, they should all line up together, which they do. Magic. So cutting the MDF is really easy as well. It cuts really nicely with a craft knife. so you don't need any specialist tools or anything, or any saws for doing this. The only problem we've got here really is a little bit of lack of workspace. So what I tend to do with a long length like this, I'll sort one section of it first, make sure that's all set and cut, scored down nice and deep. Then I'll do the other section, then I'll take the ruler away, and I can cut through the whole lot to finish it off then. So another thing with any of these materials, whether you're working with plasticard or MDF, you're never going to cut through this in one pass with a craft knife. So this is a case of putting repeated passes down the material to make the cut through it. It's probably about 10-20 cuts to get through this, but it takes only a couple of minutes. So I've got a nice deep score in that section now, so I can move material along and then do the same on this other half as well. I'm just going to make sure it's sat over level ground as well, so we don't get any wobbles at the end. So I've now got a nice deep score all the way along the length of this. So just to make life a little bit easier, and obviously be careful when doing this, you now got a very sharp blade here, and your finger's going to be in the way. I can now start cutting down this score without the ruler there to finish it off. Now if you're less confident with the craft knife than me, then you might want to keep your ruler there for longer. But at this point, the score line should keep the blade in line as it runs through the material. You see it's now just neatly broken away there. Just going to finish off the other end. There we go. So our next section cut away, ready to insert. So I'm just going to drop that straight in. Make sure it fits. Does nice tight neat fit into there. And one of the things I noticed with my previous section is that as soon as I cut it, actually, because of the way the knife cuts through the MDF, it does create a little bit of a raised lip on the back edge, or actually the front edge as you cut through it. So to make this sit flush with the top of the inspection pits, I'm just going to need to sand that rough edge off there. I've just got a Albion Alloys sanding stick here. I'll quickly use that just to tidy that up, and then this will be ready to insert. So as you can see, that all slots into there nice and neatly. I'm ready to move on to the next section now. Obviously you can see a little bit of movement in all this at the moment. There's a very good reason for that. I didn't want to get these inspection pits fixed down too early in the process, so they have all got a little bit of movement in them. But that just means that whilst I'm creating all these, I can make sure that as we go, each section's exactly the right width that drops in between each inspection pit. And then when the last one goes in, we can actually start fixing all this down as well, so it won't move anymore after that as well.
Something else. Now what a fool believes. You got to pay your dues before it's all cookies and cream. You got to pay your dues before it's all cookies and cream.
So behind me now we've got the beginnings of the scenic break, which is going to take the layout through from its scenic area into a hidden storage yard, which means we can then change locomotives off scene, bring different locomotives in, and illustrate locomotives moving off to the rest of the world. Now, an important part of a scene break like that is to make it look realistic and give a break between those scenes. So for that, we're putting in a bridge across the top, and then it's supported by polystyrene blocks underneath on each side as well. Now these are very roughly cut to shape at the moment, and what I'll end up doing is cutting them to shape with a hot wire foam cutter, where other bits, I mean for example the bit immediately to my right here, that'll actually be a brick face to give a wall finish to the land there as well. Now what I'm planning to do is have a dummy main line on top of that bridge as well, so it looked like a railway crossing the railway, but obviously that's not going to go anywhere on this layout. It'll just be for static display only. At this point though, all I can really do is wait for the glue to dry. I've got to make sure that the PVA that's holding the polystyrene blocks together is fully set first before I can move on to shaping those blocks, and I've also got the small job of building the bridge that's going to go across that entrance point as well. So we'll pick back up on that a bit later in the series. So the next stage of the project is going to be adding a road scene along the front of the layout here. It's actually going to run all the way around the end of the hard standing. Then it'll come onto this board and then cross over the railway into a little car park area with the stores building here. So in order to put that down, I'm going to start with a layer of ever so slightly diluted PVA. So it's neat PVA, but just with a dash of water added just to help it move around a little bit more easily. I'm going to apply that by brush direct onto the baseboard surface here. So just brushing that on like this. Work my way along the layout. And then to give it a little bit of detail and interest, I'm going to add a very thin line of grass alongside the edge of this as well. So I'm just using a bit of blended green fine turf from Woodland Scenics here. So this is just going to create a very small boundary between the road and the railway here. Just a little bit of scenic interest. So otherwise this could become a very grey looking layout. So now I've got that grass layer down, I'm going to dust over this with the Geoscenics Pothole Road Kit. This is just a very fine grey powder. Make my way along the layout. It's very fine dust this, but it gives a really good effect at the end as well. So one of the things I really like about this Pothole Road Kit is it just gives that bit of texture that sometimes can be missing from a painted surface. And then I'm going to use there's an extra colour in this, which is like a browny mud colour. I'm going to use very sparing on this just to represent a few potholes along the edge of the road. So I'm going to continue the road surface on here, but then sort of terminate it just opposite the stores building here. What I want to do now is then actually introduce a road crossing across the railway here. I'm going to do a similar technique to what I used on the narrow gauge layout, which is actually to use the Pothole Road Kit to build it up to create that road scene. So, whereas normally I wouldn't get any of the PVA up on top of the ballast that I've already put down, in this case I actually do want it there. And the same going across here. So it's going to look like one of those sort of rough and ready rudimentary roads you might find in a yard where it crosses over the railway. So now starting off by covering all the front area of the road here, going right up to the railway as well at the same time. So I'm looking to bed in those sleepers completely. I want them to disappear, but also make a nice slope back down to the flat ground here as well. As I did before, just going to add in a few specks of the brown, represent some muddy puddles along the edge of this road.
Boom, boom, there's a knock at the door, but don't freeze in your tracks. It's that chance that you've been waiting for.
So whilst I'm laying this on the inside of the rails, what I'll end up doing is laying it as close as I can get it to how I want it to be. Then I'll tamp it down with my finger, and then once it's set I'll probably end up just scraping a little bit out using the end of a piece of rail, just to make sure that we don't cause any issues with gauging coming through these this little crossing here. So now comes the fun bit, because I've got to glue all this down, and when you've got a depth of ground cover like this, relying on the glue soaking up from underneath is never going to work. So I've got to wet all this with a water mister and then apply a really thin layer of PVA over the top. So I'm just putting on a first layer of weathering now to the ballast around the track. So obviously we'd weathered the track earlier in the process and put a base colour onto the track and the rail sides, but it's now time to start toning down the colour of the ballast as well. It's all a bit too bright and shiny at this point, especially for a diesel depot. So this first colour is a Geoscenic track grime, which is just a general sort of dirty track colour. Once I've done that, I'll come back and add a second colour. So we'll add some deeper black tones into this as well. So obviously we've got lots of oil spills and dirt to add in around a diesel depot like this. So I'm using an airbrush which is connected to a small portable compressor, just a bit easier to get around a layout like this when you're spraying such a large area. So now I've been adding a second layer of weathering over the top of the first brown layer. This is a black concentrate from Geoscenics, which has been reduced down with some water just to make it a little bit thinner and make it not too heavy when it goes onto the layout as well. So this is adding that extra layer of tone on top of that initial colour. I think if we just had a uniform single brown colour across the whole layout, it wouldn't really look right. But this is, if you look around the layout now, you'll find some areas are much heavier than others. So for example, around the fuel point here, I'm now on my third application around the fueling point, because I wouldn't like to look really black and dirty from where all the fueling's happened, where locos will have stood for a long time as well. So that'll be a really filthy part of the layout. But then other areas, it's not quite so dirty, because it's areas where, for example, locos aren't standing around. But again, I've increased the weight of the black around here, where you might have a couple of locos stood outside the depot. Maybe had a bit of an oil leak on the sleepers. It's all about adding that texture and depth to the colouring of the layout. Hopefully you can see that already this has really changed how the layout's actually looking. It's changed it from being what is quite a bland landscape with little colour change to it to actually something that is perhaps a bit more realistic as well. Obviously there's still more textures to come. We've still got ground cover to put into this as well to really expand the depth of what you see around the layout as well. So things have moved on a little bit now in this this corner of the layout. So for starters, the polystyrene blocks have all now been shaped as close as I can get them with the type of method I was using the hot wire foam cutter. And then I've put in the foam core decks either side, which is what the track bed would originally lay on across here. And then I've now been creating the bridge support structure out of Wills plastic sheeting. So it's a little bit rough and ready around the corners. I've got a couple of bits I've just got to sand and finish off. But once all that's painted and finished and blended in with all the ground cover that's going to go around it as well, this should all hopefully, he says, fingers crossed, look quite nice. Like I say, it's a little bit rough and ready at this point, bit of tidying up, I'll be ready to move on. So my next jobs then are to put a base cover onto the brick retaining walls, and then to put a base coat onto the foam core as well, get it all fixed down, and we can keep moving.
Across the river there's a woman I know. Sometimes I go there and I knock on her door. I said, baby, 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 let's waste some time.
Moving on from where we were then, we've now got the landscapes all painted with a dark brown base colour. I've dry brushed all the brickwork on the brickwork going through the bridge here as well. I've got one last bit to do. I've still got to colour the top sections there. We'll do that in a minute. They wanted to do a little bit more on the scenic work around the layout. So my next task is going to be to lay down some old sleepers that are going to go into this area underneath the bridge here. Maybe a few up on the top level here to represent some disused tracks around the yard. What I'm simply going to do for that is I'm going to cover that base brown area in PVA glue, and then I'm going to drop the sleepers into it. Then I'm going to put some ballast around them, then I'm going to put some green scatter around them from the Woodland Scenics range, and then we'll start adding some more layers on top of that a little bit later in the process. Again, one stage at a time, base layers down next, then we can move on again. So right, stick with me, we'll get a bit more done. So I've laid PVA down on the layout here, and then I'm now going to go around these sleepers with some ballast as a next stage, and then a little bit more around the outsides as well. So I'm using the same ballast we used before, and come back and add some more weathering to this as well later in the game plan, because we don't want shiny clean ballast down here, especially where it's old ballast which has been heavily used, been abused, and the track's been taken away as well. My next layer here is Woodland Scenics Fine Blended Green Turf, which is a good catch-all base colour for grassed areas. And on top of this we'll be adding plenty of layers of static grass as well to really increase the depth of the grass around the layout here. Just about finished the base layer around the front edge of the layout here. So what I'm going to do next is move on to add the same kind of base layers up on top of the track bed as well, and the raised section here. I've finished now all the base layers of the ground cover, so it looks a little bit rough and ready in places, but that's not a problem because it's got plenty of layers to go on top of that as well. It's interesting this stage of a layout. It doesn't feel like it looks the way I want it to do. And you're probably watching at home thinking, it doesn't look quite right, it's not really going in the right kind of direction. But this is all about creating layers of materials on top of layers, which bring it up to a finished look. So once this is all dried, which I'm going to leave overnight now at least to dry, then come back and we'll start adding a first layer of static grass. So I'll just clear up some of the loose materials first, then static grass on top of that, and you'll really start to see that this scene starts to take a bit more kind of reality to it as well. Or at least that's the plan anyway. So bear with me, I'm going to have a little rest, let this all dry, and we'll come back and continue on next time.
So the scenery is coming on.
It certainly is. It's been making progress, and we'll show you more of that and how we get to the final stage of it as well.
Just remind everyone at home, Mike, where they can get hold of their own diesel depot building and follow the progress.
Absolutely. So the diesel depot kits for both the option A and the option B of our new laser cut diesel depot kits, they're available from shop.keypublishing.com, where you can buy both of those right now. Prices start from £85 for the through shed, and don't forget, if you're excited to build a bigger depot, you can join the units together as well to make a bigger depot. So for example, you could have two option A kits and create a long 4-road double loco length shed, or you can join an option A and an option B together to create a shed like ours, or you can add 3 of them together, however many you really feel like you want to buy, really.
It's quite exciting how versatile they actually are.
Yeah, absolutely. And that, like I said before, they do go together really well as well. They're all laser cut. They've got laser cut glazing, laser cut window frames, laser cut roof covers. Everything's there for you to build the building. They've even got laser cut partitions to go in the office block as well. So if you're really into your detailed modelling, you can add a fully detailed interior inside there as well. And don't forget as well, we've got the 4-part series in Hornby magazine running alongside this video series as well. So the first part went live in issue 190, our April 2023 issue, which is a general introduction to the layout. In part 2, which is going to be on sale in our May 2023 issue, that covers construction of the diesel depot buildings in detail. And then we've got further parts on detailing of the landscape around the layout, and a final piece about the Birdcage Bridge and the scenic break as well.
So quite literally endless content.
Absolutely.
It's great.
Yeah, and I've got more things in store for the future as well. Just throw that in there. There's always another project.
So I think it's time we bid you all farewell. Thank you very much for watching this episode. Next time, of course, we'll be looking a bit more into the stock and some of the finer details on the layout. But for now, we'll say thank you very much for watching. Take care, and we'll see you very soon in the next one. Bye for now.
Introducing Key Model World, your new online destination for everything railway and scale modelling. Featuring exclusive videos and features, unseen images, step-by-step guides, railway history, and the latest news. Plus, it's home to our full layout build series.
So Mike, we're here again. Another one of your bright ideas.
Yeah, I should stop having these bright ideas, to be honest.
Join us for the latest content from Key Publishing's modelling titles, Hornby Magazine and Airfix Model World. Sign up today for as little as £3.75 per month, or if you're a magazine subscriber, bolt Key Model World onto your subscription package now. For more details, visit keymodelworld.com.